What's going on, guys? Welcome to today's stream. March Madness is here, and I had to bring my man Ryan Hammer to join me and to talk March Madness brackets, all the good things. How we doing, man?
I'm good. I'm happy to finally get on, like we just spoke about. How are you?
I'm doing great, man.
Yeah.
We were just talking about linking up and finally doing something because I know you've watched some of my stuff. I've been following you for a few years now,
Mm.
so I'm happy that we can make this happen, man. So first and foremost, we were talking about this before we got on air here, but let everyone know who your team is just to get that out of the air.
I'm a Maryland fan. Ben said something because I was wearing a Carolina hat. I go places I don't really like. Maryland is so underwhelming, so it's like pretty easy to root for other teams and just like go experience other things. So I'm a Maryland fan.
Yeah. You know what, Maryland, I always have like a soft spot for them in my heart because I'm sure you're like me growing up. We watched March Madness as a kid, and I remember those years with Dixon and Blake. Man, they had some squads when I was like probably middle schoolish, and I remember watching those teams. Man, they were fun.
There have been good times. There have been more bad times, but there have been good times for sure. I think I have a championship. I got a championship shirt on from '02. So that's about it.
But hey, the bad times they make you appreciate the good times a little more. That's how I look at it.
Sure.
So yes, yeah. As a Broncos fan too, I'm trying to like remember how the Super Bowl felt, and then I'm like, it seems like that was so far away, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's how you feel
Yeah.
with Maryland, right?
Yeah, well, I wasn't even a Maryland fan then because I wasn't born a Maryland fan. My brother, it was like when I was like 9 or 10. And I'm like a Jets fan. Like I have never seen a single team of mine win a championship. So it sucks.
Yeah. Well, eventually it will happen. So
Exactly.
so let's talk about we have a lot to talk about. Let's just dive on into it. I want to hear your thoughts because I've been following your bracketology stuff.
Mhm.
Looked like you did a pretty good job, but you know what? I personally had a lot of issues with some things, but what were your first thoughts just seeing some of the seeding to even begin with before we talk about maybe some of the teams that were left out?
Yeah. There were. I mean, the committee never does a great job, never does a perfect job, but like I feel like they get lazy. Things like Duquesne being an 11 seed when they clearly just had VCU as an 11 seed, and then they weren't ready for Duquesne to win. And when they did, they were like, "Yeah, we're not changing everything else around. Just put them as an 11." They won the A10, like it's a good league.
Yeah,
When they should be like a 12 or 13, to be completely honest. And there are other teams like
New
McNeese State that
Mexico.
should be an 11. Yeah, well, New Mexico as an 11 was kind of crazy, also, but it's understandable. Like McNeese State has a better resume. You could put Samford higher than where they're at as a 12 or 11. Like it's kind of crazy. And then a lot of the Mountain West teams, I'm not like super surprised, but the fact that they gave San Diego State a 5 seed, and then they bumped Utah State to an 8, Nevada as a 10, Boise and Colorado State last 4 in was kind of crazy, but they also just did that with FAU. I think FAU and San Diego State got the benefit of a Final Four on last year, which doesn't make any sense, obviously,
No,
but is what
not
it
at
is.
all. Yeah, like that. That's one thing that I wrote down is like if FAU isn't in the tournament last year and they start the season, as like maybe the 50th team, that they're not getting in the dance this year. I
Mhm.
get it, but I think that's something that should probably be looked at
Yeah.
next year. And the bracket, there's a lot of things that I think maybe the common fan doesn't know about that goes into this. There's things with like BYU, right? They
Right.
can't play on Sundays. There was an issue back in 2003 that literally would have destructed social media because they would have had to redo the bracket in the middle of the bracket. Could you imagine today? Like,
Oh my god.
what would you do with all the money and all the pools? Because they can't
That'd
play
be
on
so
Sundays.
funny.
Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
that, and they have to think about that. There's what the regional sites with. I always forget that one. So like, if do you know a lot about
Yeah.
that one with the regional sites and like the top seed?
Yeah, so there's a few reasons. There's like designated hosts, like Creighton is a host in Omaha, so they can't play there. If you've played at that stadium 3 times in the year, you can't play there. Like Villanova and Wells Fargo, 2 years ago, they purposely didn't play in Wells Fargo more than 3 times or whatever it was, so that they could be in the East region. And then it's the top 4 seeds. So the top 4 seeds, unless they have literally no choice, they can't be from the same conference. So if you're Alabama, you can't be in Tennessee's region, and
Mhm.
Kentucky and whatever and Big 12 teams. They will throw you around to the East if you're a Pac-12 team if they have to, because they're just like, yeah, you can't be in the same region even if it's to meet in the Elite Eight, which is kind of
Y-
crazy to be honest.
Yeah. So look, Ryan and I aren't saying it's an easy job, but I think with technology today and the way you can run these simulators, there should be ways where you could quickly say, "Hey, Duquesne won," with a click of a button. Like, here is a contingency bracket. They do have these contingency
Right.
brackets, but my biggest issue with the selection committee is you can tell that by Friday, 99% of the stuff is locked in place. The only way they would
Yeah.
have to change it if some at large, team or some team did break through and upset and get through. But you can tell like a team like Iowa State as the eighth team. I know I was messaging you or on Twitter about 3 weeks ago. I'm like, does Iowa State have a chance at that two or maybe even one? And it was a possibility, but you could tell the committee said we're kind of lazy. We're just going to keep it where it is at this point.
Yeah, and I think they said Saturday morning they had 35 of the 36 at-larges done, which is ridiculous because they still had bid stealers left to win, and then they were probably like, "Oh, like, we have to change a little bit. We have to move that lineup and change that 35 number, to obviously a different group," but it just, like, I'm not surprised, like, this is their job. They need to do better. They always need to do better. They're never gonna do better, so.
Yeah, and the last thing about this is what I always find hilarious. They have all these different criteria that they use, right?
Mhm.
When you ask, or not us, but of course, when guys like or the CBS crew, right? They're asking these commissioners like, how did this team get in? Why did this team not make it? And they always use one of the criteria, but then they contradict themselves all the time because then you could look at a team and be like, well, team A got in because of this, but team B literally did not do that at all. So I don't know. It
Yeah.
it is what it is. I guess at the end of the day, it's like be good enough not to be on the bubble.
And there's never
I
gonna be a
guess.
right answer. Try to tell people that, like Jay Billis. I like Jay Billis as a person. I like Jay, but he was like adamant about Pitt, and I know he's an ACC guy. Like he's adamant that Pitt has to be in. Pitt has to be in. It's never that simple as hey, like they're playing great. Look at them. How are they not a tournament team? Like I could say the same about Ohio State. I could say the same about a million teams that didn't get in, Indiana State and Seton Hall and whatever. And it's just not that simple. And like, but there's never gonna be a right answer. Is always the problem. So.
Yeah, totally agree. So let's talk about some of the snubs and surprises. For me, nothing really shocked me. Because like Virginia and Michigan State, I didn't think they should get in. But am I shocked? No, I literally had a post saying, "Here's what I think the committee will do. Here's what I think they should do," and what I thought they would do. I literally had Michigan State and Virginia because I knew how they were thinking, and sure enough, we saw their names pop up on Sunday. Was there anything that really surprised you as far as like a team that either got in or maybe didn't get in?
Not really. I didn't think St. John's deserved to get in. I thought they were my first team out. I expected them to get in. I expected the committee to do kind of what they did with Michigan State and Izzo and give Rick Pitino and St. John's a little bump. I think that Izzo definitely got a bump just for being himself. So I was surprised they didn't fit them in somewhere. I think I had UVA out and OU, and it was my last thing. I knew they weren't going to put Oklahoma in. They have no like it sounds stupid. They have no reason to put Oklahoma in for the same things I was saying about Izzo and Patino. I don't agree with that that method and that strategy, but we knew that was going to happen. So
Yeah, Oklahoma was an interesting case because years prior, it seemed like they valued when star players were out a little more.
mhm.
This year, it seems like they didn't as much because we had Oklahoma, and then also Seton Hall. Uh, Kadari Richmond was out 2 games, and they went 0-2 in those games. I know that wasn't at the end of the season, but it kind of seemed like they didn't factor that in as much as maybe other years. I'm trying to think of some examples of years prior, but you could kind of tell that they didn't want to do that as much. They just kind of said, "Hey, this is how you're playing. We're going to look at the net. We're going to look at all those things." The net, I don't get me started. I get it's a sorting tool, but man, there are some fundamental issues. Looking at you, Big 12, a little bit, but
Yeah.
Indiana State would have been great. But I think as teams like NC State, made their runs, New Mexico, I don't think anyone was really shocked, right, with Indiana State not
No,
making it.
it was obvious. Once those teams started winning, Oregon, NC State, like it was pretty clear they basically stood no chance coming on selection Sunday.
I know, man. That would have been fun, but
Yeah.
oh well.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
exactly.
think of any other. I would have liked to see Providence, but I'm not surprised. Pitt. going back to what you said, that was a tough one for me. I know their resume didn't look as good, but man, the way they were playing down the stretch, they would have been fun to watch.
Mhm.
But I'm not surprised. I don't think you were either with Pitt, right?
No, I didn't expect them to get in. I think that like it wasn't just because they're out of conference schedule being so bad, 300 whatever. Like the ACC schedule isn't that good either, so that's why you need a better out of conference schedule. You don't have to play a great thing like I think A&M played a really strong one, and even Michigan State. Like you don't have to play amazing teams. You just have to not play bottom of the barrel teams. It's like pretty
And
simple.
don't lose to those
So
teams, right?
yeah, exactly. That
Yeah.
was probably like I think Seton Hall has a couple of bad losses. I forget what the other team was that was just out, but like if you have really bad losses against really bad teams, like just don't play those games. Like, play a couple of them. I get that, a
Yeah.
couple bye games, but
And then we go back to FAU, who had, I think, what, 2 pretty bad losses. And this is what we're talking about, right? Where it's
yeah,
like, well, if the committee keeps saying this, and then I don't know. But hey, look, bracket's the bracket. We have our teams now. Let's dive on into it. So I
yeah,
got the bracket pulled up here. I think like a good talking point just to start with is kind of looking at like the path for some of these teams,
mhm.
some of the higher seeds, and maybe just some first takeaways. But were there any surprises as far as like teams grouped together, or maybe teams that you were high on headed into the tournament and now seeing their draw, maybe you feel one way or another?
Listen, I've said this like 4 times in the last 24 hours. I am gonna wait to pick my Gonzaga McNeese State winner until Thursday morning probably, and whoever I have winning that game, I'm probably gonna have them winning 2 or 3 games. That one was
Okay.
definitely tough, and the entire West region, everyone says it's so weak. I don't think it's that weak. There's also just a few teams that I really like that I didn't want to see matched up against each other. Like, I don't think St. Mary's is a good draw for Grand Canyon. I like Carolina. I like New Mexico, like Baylor. They're going to play each other. I like Dayton and Nevada, and they're going to play Arizona after they play each
Clemson, yeah,
other.
Clemson, New Mexico. That's going to be a great game.
Yeah, that's a really good little bundle of 4 right there. And even Colgate's not bad either. Like they've changed kind of how they've played, and they haven't won a tournament game, but they literally have completely opposite changed their style as to what it was the last couple of years. But even New Mexico and Baylor, like if that is the second round game, which I guess even like odds and stuff point that way, that is like they're very similar in terms of player by player personnel. So that'll be interesting. But there's a lot like it happens every year. So many regions where I watch the show on Sunday and I'm like, man, like I don't want to pick anyone out of there. And then I see the West region, and I was like, I want to pick 6 teams.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes it sucks too, because, if you're betting some of these futures, ideally you don't want them all grouped together because
Right.
what you're trying to do is, you have one come out of each bracket, which God, that would be so awesome if that were to ever happen. But it never works that way, right? It's usually like,
No.
oh, great, 3 of my futures are in the same bracket. It's like, hopefully one of them gets out, and sometimes none of them will. I think for me, looking at was it the Midwest with UConn, um, yeah, UConn. What are your thoughts on this? Because I'm hearing two sides of it. I think UConn has a tough path.
When I
What
first saw it, I thought easy. I thought like, wow, this is a cakewalk to the Sweet 16 for sure. Should be to the Elite Eight. And then I thought about Auburn, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, I love Auburn. What am I talking about? I think they match up really well also in terms of like a team that could beat them. Everyone says, oh, they have the strongest 1, 2, 3, and 4, which I don't disagree on. I don't think Iowa State, just because they have the strongest resume, like they're very good. They probably are the strongest 2. I don't know if Illinois is necessarily the strongest 3. I know they've been playing really well. Auburn should have been a 3 seed, so I'll give them that. I just don't think that beyond those 4, I think there's a steep, steep drop off where a lot of the other regions, every other region has really strong double digit seeds, has really strong 7 seeds or 8 or 9s that this region doesn't. So that's why I said like I think it should be pretty chalky here. And realistically, that means that everyone's going to lose, obviously. So
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to bring up because we look at the top 4 seeds and we're like, wow, UConn has a tough draw. But then, come Saturday or Sunday, right?
yeah,
It's like, oh wow, 2 of those teams are gone.
yeah,
Could maybe a 2 seed loses this year. I don't know.
right,
It's happened. I think what the last 2, maybe even 3
yeah,
tournaments. So maybe 2 out of
something like
3.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, it happens more than people
yeah,
think, right? Like,
exactly.
yeah, it's all
Yeah,
you look at them, you're like, how is Iowa State going to lose to San Diego State or South Dakota State? And
right.
who knows?
There's a way.
Yeah. I mean, these teams are good for a reason, right? They
Yeah.
ran through their conference, they won their conference tournament. Come to this point in the season, teams are playing hot.
Yep.
Um, Anything else that kind of caught your eye as far as a team, or maybe location wise, where you're like, "What? That's a pretty good draw," or maybe
Yeah.
stylistically, kind of looking at a team.
I mean, there's a lot. The locations, I actually literally wrote this down like an hour ago. I was looking at it. So we were just talking about Iowa State. They're playing in Omaha. If Drake beats Wazoo, it's a shorter drive actually for Drake. They're both about it's a 2 hour drive, like a 2.5 hour drive. So that's a home game for both of them, which Drake, I think the Drake fans will travel very well to, and Drake will be comfortable in that setting. Nevada is playing in Salt Lake City. Akron is playing in Pittsburgh. Gonzaga is playing in Salt Lake City. Western Kentucky is an interesting one. The style too, but they're playing in Indy, which is pretty close for them.
Mm.
And then Vermont is playing in Brooklyn against Duke. I don't know. I just rattled them off, but yeah.
The Akron one's interesting because what Akron's
They're
they're a
14, I
14,
think, and
and
they're
yet
playing it in Pittsburgh, which is very
yeah,
close to them, and Omaha is not close.
yeah, and look, these are going to happen, right? I know the committee tries to avoid situations like this, but
Yeah.
at a certain point, it's like something isn't going to be in place the way they would like. And yeah, I think Akron got a pretty good draw. I mean, do you think Akron has any shot in that game though?
Yeah, I think they do. I think more because Creighton hasn't been playing as amazing as we know they can be in the last few games, but Creighton's going to be the hot quote unquote dark horse pick. Them in Kentucky, everyone's like, I'm picking a 3 seed out of this region. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Even though Creighton can definitely be that team, and so can Kentucky. Akron has a sliver of a chance. Like it's not nothing. I'll never say it's nothing for the
Mhm.
14 seeds, especially. If it was like a 16-1, I'd say no chance maybe, but they're alive. They're in the tournament. They're alive. They're a good team. They were the best MAC team for a majority of the year, which is a pretty tough league. So
Okay, so let's talk about the 1 through 5 seeds. Uh, and we could go, I guess, a little lower if we had to. But is there anyone that not necessarily you think they're going to lose first round, but maybe not make a run, and you're hearing a lot of chatter? Maybe it's a conference tournament winner, right? Who's
yeah.
riding a bunch of momentum, coming off a hot streak. Is there anyone in particular that you think is maybe not poised to make a run?
I mean, there are a lot of teams. I think I don't want to say this. Marquette could definitely like go to the Final Four, and wouldn't be surprised at all. I mentioned the Western Kentucky thing because I think it's a legit thing to watch with how they play and their style, and just like it's the fastest pace in the country. But I think if Colorado is that team versus Florida, I think Colorado gets out. I think Colorado can give Marquette a really, really good game. And then even if they get out the Sweet 16 and it is Kentucky there, like I don't know if that's a style that Marquette can keep up with. So I don't love their path, even though I know people do like them, the metrics and everything that I like to
Kolek coming
put out
back,
there.
right?
Yeah, and like I mean he'll be fine. Like he's big time. So I don't know. There's more of a gut feeling also on top of what I said, but they a small red flag.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The thing with Colorado and me being and Ryan popped out, he said he would have some issues, so we'll let him get back in here. But the thing with Colorado, and you guys know, well, maybe some of you know that I'm a Colorado guy. I've been watching them, but first of all, I'm happy they just made the tournament because the way the season was kind of unfolding, like I was a little worried. On paper, they have such a good team, right? They have Cody Williams, perennial top 10 draft pick. They have KJ Simpson. They have Tristan Da Silva. They have the guys, but the issue with Colorado, I'm talking about Colorado here,
Yeah.
Ryan, um, under Tad Boyle, they just have not had success in the tournament. I think he's only made the Sweet 16 one time, or maybe the round of 32 once. His record is not good in the tournament, and it's not good away from home to begin with. Uh, Cody Williams has been banged up, but I think he is like an X factor
Mhm.
for that team. Is that one of the reasons why you think Colorado can kind of make a little bit of a run?
Yeah, Cody helps. Like having NBA talent at all is obviously really good, and just his style and what he offers as next factor is good. KJ is next level. He does absolutely everything. Tristan Da Silva, like you said, is really good. I think Eddie Lampkin, like we've seen him play well in the tournament before. I don't think he's this game-changing center, but he's one of those guys that people will like fall in love with again for a game or two in the weekend and stuff like that. And he is good. He's been around for a while, in a couple of power conferences now, so I like that. And I just think, and they shoot the ball really well. Like they don't shoot a ton, but when they need to, they will. I just think they have the makeup. Like I watch them when they play well, and I'm like, I swear this team can beat almost anybody in the country on a good day. To be fair, that's the case for a lot of these teams in the tournament that are like 10 seed and below that.
Mhm.
I have a good feeling about Colorado as long as they get past Boise. because I think everyone loves Florida. Everyone loves Florida, even without Micah, which I understand. But I think Colorado's the team there.
Yeah, they have Condon and Hawk, I think is how you pronounce his
Yeah.
last. Did you see that thing about his last name? I thought it was pretty funny.
No, I didn't see it
They
actually.
they asked, so his name's spelled Haugh,
Yeah.
and they said, "Why is it pronounced that way?" And he goes, "I don't know. That's how they always pronounced it." They're like, "All
Nice.
right." So no, but yeah, they have some depth. It sucks to see what happened, man.
Yeah.
You never want to see that, but yeah, they're gonna be okay. It's just, yeah, can they get past a Colorado? What about Boise? Because Boise, I watched a lot of them out of the Mountain West. If they, let's say, they do beat Colorado, do you think there's any chance that they make a run, or maybe you're not as high in the Mountain West?
So I'm a pro Mountain West guy. Like, I love Mountain West. I
Thank you.
don't love, yeah, I don't love Boise. I like 2 weeks ago they were playing as good as anybody in the country. Like every number and every eye test will show you they were playing at an unbelievable level. Their offense got to a point that it was like legit good, where it's usually the opposite. I don't feel so confident about that right now after the last, I guess, week and change. But I don't like their matchup against Florida either. They can't keep up with them.
Yeah, that would be a tough matchup. I mean, they would really have to slow the pace down.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's the best stylistic matchup for them.
Yeah. And
All
there's a
right.
reason a lot of them. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. No, you're good.
Oh yeah, no, go ahead, and then I'll move on to the.
It's just like I love the Mountain West teams. They don't succeed in the tournament outside of like Nevada in that Loyola year, and then last year obviously San Diego State, and like a lot of these teams like Boise are the ones that end up flopping. So
Well, you know what the narrative is going to be if Colorado State loses, right? Everyone's bracket's going to be like, well, look at the Mountain West. They're going to pull this again where they can't win, right?
yeah,
But if they win, I feel like it's either way, it's going to be extreme, right?
we just
I
gotta
know,
hope for New Mexico. That's it.
I know, man. New Mexico can't lose. They can't.
Can't. No way.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Let's talk about some Cinderellas and sleepers. So I mean, this is why we love March. And you know what? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, or see if you back me up on this. Like, looking at some of the potential lower seeds, it was harder for me to find like a team that I thought could make a run, a double digit
Yeah.
favorite. But I mean, I have a few in mind. Do you feel the same, like, compared to years past, or do you have a few?
I have a few. I always have a few. I just like I kind of feel similar. I think that's because a lot of the number 1, 2, and 3 seeds in a lot of small conferences were losing. So you get a lot of Longwood and Duquesne and teams like that. There are a few champions that are good, like that we know of, obviously. But I think that's like people don't see that gap because they just see seed numbers. But the teams like that past like the 12 seeds really, and like Samford, there's a huge drop off in quality because those teams were never supposed to sniff the tournament. Not to say they can't win games. Like St. Peter's wasn't supposed to win, even when their conference, when they went to the freaking Elite Eight, obviously. But there are definitely teams. I mentioned New Mexico. It's hard not to like New Mexico. I'm kind of terrified. Like everyone loves New Mexico. So
Yeah.
are they really gonna be able to go to the Sweet 16 Elite Eight? They definitely can. I think people kind of forgot about Drake a little bit, and I think they're counting them out because they're gonna have to play Iowa State second round if they even get past Wazoo, because it's not like the best matchup for them. I like Drake a lot. I like the way they play, and they don't really turn the ball over a lot, which is how Iowa State wins games. They thrive off that. So I think they can get past Iowa State, which would put them in a good position to go to the Elite Eight. I like JMU. Their draw is super tough, and then they'd have to play Houston, which is terrible.
Oh, sorry, JMU?
James Madison, sorry, my bad.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so they would face them
Yeah.
potentially in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I like them in the Wisconsin game, even the Duke Vermont game, but like I guess that kind of is a Cinderella run if you win 2 games as a 12 seed, so I guess that counts.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, big 10 teams in the tournament, man. You never know what you're going to get sometimes. Even those Izzo teams, like, they seem to always like find a way to win. But it seems like times I've backed Wisconsin in the past, they've screwed me over. But I think James Madison, for me, like, that's one that I had on my list. I don't like the Vermont over Duke look as much. You like it a little bit. Are you gonna pick that in your bracket?
No, I won't. I actually don't love the matchup either. I think I mentioned before they're playing in Brooklyn. Like there's a couple of inklings in the style that could be okay, but I think Duke should be fine.
Question here about Grand Canyon or McNeese. So I think Grand Canyon kind of has a tough draw here with St. Mary's. I will say though, if you look back earlier in the season, they played well against San Diego State. I think they won that game, which is like the closest comparison I think you can make to like a St. Mary's from a defensive perspective because I mean we saw St. Mary's really shut down Gonzaga in that WCC final, and Gonzaga was playing really good basketball offensively up to that point. So we know that St. Mary's can kind of slow things down and really, really make you struggle offensively. And I think this is big for St. Mary's, like this game and maybe this tournament as a whole, is because they've been here. They finally get another WCC championship. But is Grand Canyon just going to continue to get to the free throw line, man? I mean, they always find a way. Is this where it kind of stops, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the St. Mary's thing also, like, their whole entire job, their life every year is beat Gonzaga. They literally don't care about anything else. That's obviously they do, but like if they beat Gonzaga and obviously in the WCC tournament, like it's a successful season no matter what happens in the NCAA tournament. So I think that speaks more to their preparation that they do every year, multiple times a year to play Gonzaga in that title game more than Gonzaga is not like, whatever, and St. Mary's can stop anybody. They can obviously, but it's not the best matchup for GCU. I still like GCU a lot. They're one of the only mid majors that is legit like power conference good. I've said that a couple times. Like if you put them in any power conference, there's no way they finish last in any of them, not even close. Them and McNeese State, I'd say McNeese State is another one, and that draw is against another WCC team, and that draw is oh god, it's awful, it's terrible.
That's a tough one. That was one that I bet early the total on because it opened at 145, and I'm like, McNeese, they can score. Is it McNair? I think his name is. Is that their
Their best Shahade Wales is their best
Yeah,
player.
yeah. And I mean,
Shahade, yeah.
they got scores, and the Gonzaga, I think the way they kind of ended the season, I think Ben Gregg kind of coming in and finding success with the three ball, like they needed that kind of second, I would say, I guess you could say third score if you want to say Graham Ike is like the second, but like
Yeah.
having someone they can rely on to hit some threes, and of course Hickman too, but I think they're going to come in hot. But yeah, for McNeese, it's like that's going to be tough for them to kind of slow down Gonzaga.
Yeah, I think their game point has to be just like they don't go deep into the guard bench Gonzaga because they can't. McNeese has to just completely focus Ryan Nembhard and just try to ruin his day no matter what they do. If the bigs are scoring, whatever, I think that has to be their main focus because they thrive off of turnovers and turnover margin. So if you can create anything out of Ryan Nembhard, put him in foul trouble, get him off shooting, get him off handling, anything, use more of the shot clock, that's beneficial to them. Will Wade's going to be ready. They're well prepped. They've been prepped for Gonzaga for more than just a day already. I know that for a fact. But it's still a tough game because Gonzaga is one of the best teams in the country at not turning the ball over. So if they're not turning the ball over, then it could be tough for McNeese.
Without prying too much, were they kind of expecting to maybe get Gonzaga just kind of based on how things were going to shape up?
Yeah, so one of their coaches does like bracketology, like just for themselves, and it came out today, I think, and I texted someone about it within their program, and he said like I guess it was Saturday, he was like, or Saturday or Friday, I think it was, he's like, hey, like we're gonna play in Salt Lake City against Gonzaga as a 12 seed, and then like Alabama and Kansas might be one of our 4 seeds or something like that, and he got it spot on. So I know that it's only been an extra couple of days, but it's an extra couple of days to watch Gonzaga film. So.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're sitting around and you have that, 30% of your day where you're like, this is where we usually watch film, it's like, well, why not watch Gonzaga then if we think there's a chance? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it. So look, if those guys can figure that out, we know that the bracket people could probably come up with some more intricate matchup spots and like being able to have more brackets on the fly, but I don't know. I mean, who's the youngest person in that committee? Probably like 50.
No shot. It's got to be at least 6. Maybe there's someone in there. I would love
Yeah.
to meet them. Like I know you can find all the people, but I would
I
love to
looked
get
at
them
them.
all in a room.
I looked at a few. I'm like, oh man, like no offense, but I'm like we need to get one young guy in there, man. Just like
Seriously,
some data guy, and just say like, hey, like
some
here's
nerd.
what we
Yeah,
can do. Yeah. Oh well, that's a story for another
yeah.
day. Anyone else that kind of caught your attention? I know. What about like maybe a team that's like 5 to 10 that
Yeah.
you could actually think could make like the Final Four?
Final Four. 5 to 10. You said.
Yeah, I guess we. Yeah,
No,
let's
I
keep
mentioned
it 5 to
Drake.
10.
I
Yeah.
mentioned Drake. Final Four is probably too much of a stretch in UConn's region. I think everyone forgot about like they didn't forget about Dayton. Dayton hasn't beaten really good teams all year. They haven't done a good job in those massive games. But Dayton does a lot of things well. They're pretty balanced. They shoot the ball well. Them and Nevada is basically a 7 seed versus 7 seed because Nevada should have been nowhere near the cut line like they were. So I think that's a really good game. They play very, very similar styles. Everyone is on Nevada. Like I know you're looking
I
at all the
know.
lines.
I like
Public,
Nevada.
every person in the world is on Nevada. I understand why. They've also been shooting the ball a lot more lately, and they're not the best shooting team. And Dayton is one of the best shooting teams. So I think Nevada has a real chance because I think the winner of that game is going to beat Arizona. They both match up very well. I'm not confident in Dayton winning that game. I just think if they win that game, I like them to beat Arizona, and then from there you could get New Mexico, and you could get anybody at that point. So
One matchup potentially I could see like causing a team maybe
yeah,
some issue is Texas A&M. If they beat Nebraska, and Nebraska's playing great ball right now, but if
yeah,
they can get past Nebraska, the Houston Texas A&M matchup could be kind of interesting. So, Houston has had a great season, but down the stretch, saw Iowa State beat them, and then Iowa State beat them twice actually, once earlier in the season.
right.
Is there anything that maybe a team like Texas A&M can take away from that matchup other than hitting threes, right? That's always helpful.
Yeah, I think just playing into early lead is obviously everyone wants to do that, but playing into early lead and out of their traps is huge. They played earlier in the season actually, and Texas A&M kept it which is wild that they're like there had to be another way for Texas A&M to be anywhere else in the entire bracket because they played early in the season. Like they always say they don't want to do this, they don't want to have these
And it
matchups,
happens every year, right?
and they just did it anyway. Like I'm literally gonna look at it right now. If they put, I guess they can't play TCU, can't play Northwestern or
Why?
Michigan State. All right, I stand corrected. Maybe that's why they
Why
didn't
not
want to pick
TCU?
Northwestern, because they're Big 12.
Oh, yeah, and they couldn't
Same
play,
issue.
they couldn't play, they
Or they
can't
could
put.
have right, or they could have moved Nebraska somewhere else, like because they're 8-9. It doesn't really matter, but they played earlier in the year. It was a really good game. I think if Texas A&M makes it an offensive game, and they just need Wade to be going off and Tyrese to be doing their thing. If they can stretch it out and cause Houston to have to like go a little bit, I think that's the way to go. But that's tough, man. I think the Nebraska game is more of a worry. I think Nebraska, like, they're just going to outshoot them.
Yeah, what's his face? How do you
Keisei
dude,
Tominaga, yeah,
what a
the
story,
legend.
man. What a
He's the
story.
best. Everyone
Yeah,
everyone wants to see him win, but him
yeah.
against Houston, I don't know if he like they would not let him get a single thing off.
I know. Oh, I mean, Sheed and Crier, they would be in his grill, man. The funny thing about this Nebraska Texas A&M matchup, did you see
Oh, they're
the?
women's, right?
Yeah, so both the men and women's have the same matchup, and then Trev Alberts was the old AD at Nebraska.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so it could be something there. It could be
That's funny.
coincidence, but do
Yeah.
do the women and men's like have any sort of communication, or is it just kind of separate?
The
Like,
like the committees or something or
yeah.
like the team. The
Like,
committee they have to be different, I think, at least. I don't
well,
know.
I know they're different, but do you think they like
Oh,
look
maybe.
or like could see at least like, oh hey, or do you think that was a sheer coincidence that they're both playing each
I
other?
I think it was probably a coincidence, and then they said like, "Oh yeah, like, this can be a thing. Like, let's make it happen now."
Yeah,
After they
exactly.
realized it
Let's
was a
let's
coincidence.
run with it, right?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Nebraska. Yeah, Nebraska hasn't won a game in the tournament. I
Wow,
think that's correct.
that's crazy. Ever?
They, yeah, they just
I don't
haven't
even know
had
that.
good. I mean, they had that one team. Was it like 2008? I thought, or
Oof.
I don't know. They had one decent team, but then other than that, I mean,
Yeah,
they. I mean, back in the 90s, it was like it was football, right? Like
yeah, it's fair.
there was no basketball. Well, I mean, they're playing, but didn't have success.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the favorite to win, and I want to pull up your graphic here. Give me one
I think I
second.
have it also, but or do
Okay, I
I?
think I have it. Let me
It's on my
let me see
Twitter
here.
somewhere.
Yeah, I got it on your Twitter. I just have to
Yeah.
share. Let me get this. This is awesome, man. I love looking at the
People love
infographics.
it more than I do at this point. I'm like, "All right, I'll
Yeah.
post it," but and people are gonna live and die by this way too much, but that's not for me to tell them what to do.
Oh, that's the wrong one. DM leaks. DM leaks. It's
Yeah.
working.
StreamYard link, everyone get
I
in
know,
it.
I know. I always see like those really popular streamers where they have some funny,
Yeah,
funny
that's
like
so yeah.
yeah. Let me
Game
see here.
lobbies and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see here. Okay, boom. All right, so
There we
kind
go.
of give us a rundown of this for the people.
Yeah, so I started doing it last year, but not in this like formal of a naming and stuff. It's called the Trapezoid of Excellence. Before everyone knows, know, it's a thing that looks at pace because teams that play too fast or too slow usually don't do well in terms of winning a national title, especially teams that play too fast. So it's a trapezoid because the faster or slower you play, the better you need to do that at to be able to win the title. The only team that was like wildly outside the middle, where Iowa State, UConn, Purdue, Auburn are, was Virginia in 2019 in the last like 5 or 6 champions.
Mhm.
So Houston, it's kind of like Houston range, a little above them actually. So it fits that category. But I just started looking at that, and then I started using it to find upsets. So like last year, the Alabama San Diego State game, like they were polar opposites in styles. And the reason why this chart and graph, why I tell people like don't always take the slower paced team, but if they're playing at the similar rating, lean that way because Alabama and Arizona right here, like they don't value possessions as much as Houston and St. Mary's do, right? Like those
Mhm.
teams play at a high rating, their offenses are efficient, so they crunch the game down. Every possession means more to them. Where Arizona and Alabama and Kentucky and Samford, they play in games where there's much more possession, so they can take wild shots and they can make it's okay if we miss
Caleb
that.
Love.
I mean, yeah,
Case in
basically.
point,
So
right? Yeah, no, I
yeah,
think this
so
is great because, I know there's people that are always like skeptical of the data stuff, but it's like if you watch Arizona, Alabama, or Kentucky play, you're spot on with what you said, right? Like
right.
they will run and shoot transition threes. They'll try to get offensive rebounds too. Uh, they try to speed the game up, right? And that kind of works into what they're trying to do. But the point here is in the tournament, right? Like that can kind of be a detriment when you're that extreme because the game's going to naturally slow down a little bit, right?
Right. It's exactly. And there are parts of it on the contrary, like Virginia last year, Furman played at a higher pace and Virginia was basically where they are now, just like a little better of like the actual performance rating. But it was a similar thing. And it's like when you play in general, just one style so often, like teams are gonna figure it out at some point. Your in conference opponents might not because they think that they can just beat it the same way they're doing things. But when you play against a team who's literally just spending the whole week game planning for you as the underdog, like you might be screwed. So
Alabama was actually one that I wrote down on my first look at the bracket with Charleston. What do you
mhm.
think about that matchup?
I think they could be balanced because Charleston can keep up with anybody. My thing is like this is the exact thing that Alabama wants though. Like they want it to be 95-90, and they'll just outshoot someone and outscore someone and out talent everybody else and outrun. So that's my only worry with that for Charleston, I guess. But I think the second game they'll play is if it's against St. Mary's, I'll take St. Mary's in a heartbeat, even if it's against GCU, who I think is like underneath the Drake area in the middle. They
Yeah,
can
right,
play
right in
slower
this
if they want
cluster.
to. Yeah. They can
Yeah.
play slower if they want to. So I think that's like even the second round. So at that point, you might as well take Charleston if you think Alabama's going to lose second round just to wing it. So
Mhm. One team I want to bring up that we haven't yet is well, we brought it up earlier because you have their hat on, is North
yeah,
Carolina. And I know you chatted with Baycott and you know him personally. And it was funny, we were chatting on X like probably in January, and I said, you know, is there something going on with Baycott? Like he hasn't been taking over games as much. And you made a really good point, and it made sense. You get to March, you need the guards to step up, right? I mean, we haven't really seen teams since we would have to go back to maybe the early 2000s that were led by a big guy because the game has changed, right? Like you have to hit threes, you have to get those tough shots in transition, things like that. Watching this team play, they definitely have made strides, but then of course they had that loss to NC State. How do you feel about them kind of headed to the tournament, and any nuggets you can also give us with them?
yeah. That stuff is valuable. I think obviously the public doesn't know that stuff, but Armando, like he is, everyone kind of understands he's more like laid back for the most part and calm and like he's poised. I mean, he's been doing this for 5 years at this point, so he knows what he's doing. Like he understands role. He's slimmed down. He's more athletic now. He's more mobile and stuff. Like he understands that he had to take not a back seat, but like a passenger seat next to RJ and like to let this team thrive. But Hubert's also changed them defensively. Like they, for the last couple of years, they've been so offensive, like in that Arizona, Alabama range. And he knew that coming into the year. And he said that from in November, like we have to play more defense this year if we want to win a national title and do those things. So props to them for that. I don't really worry about the NC State loss. Like I don't know. NC State was just playing out of their minds. 5 games, 5 wins, 5 days. Like they're just doing their thing. And I think it adds a little fire because it wasn't early in the conference tournament where I was like legit worried. They got to the title game, Carolina. So I think it adds a little fire for them too.
I think the big thing with North Carolina is Cormac Ryan, and he's going to get those open looks from deep. And I know in like the last few games, he maybe hasn't been hitting those threes as consistent as he would like. I think that's going to be a big thing for me. I think he can knock him down. I think he's talented. I mean, there's a reason why he's at North Carolina. I think defensively they'll be okay. I kind of forget what their path looks like.
It's like
Let's see here.
Michigan State, Miss State, then they play GCU, Alabama, St. Mary's. Like I love their path. I actually love their path to
Yeah,
Elite Eight.
I think if they Mississippi State is a team that I have my eye on. But if they get past them, I feel pretty good. I think they match up well against an Alabama. I think if they play St. Mary's, if they get up, they're going to be able to kind of push the pace on them.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, I like their path pretty good here.
Yeah, especially because we were talking about like St. Mary's and Alabama potentially losing. Like GCU is good, but Carolina would love to play GCU in the Sweet 16. So
yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I love this stuff, man. Purdue, a little surprised Purdue is kind of I guess it makes sense with Purdue. Braden Smith, man, what a year he's had.
I'm sorry, my dog was going crazy.
All good, man. I
Yeah,
got
Braden's
dogs
been
and
good.
kids upstairs. You're fine.
Yeah, Purdue like last year was super slow. Also, they were on that Virginia like level pace. They've adjusted too, which is pretty good. And I mean, I just can never take Purdue to win to succeed. I'm just not gonna do it. Like I'm just not.
I can't, man. Edie, I think is, I want to hear your thoughts because you hear a lot about like a big guy and like his game, and maybe Purdue's offensive attack doesn't translate as well to the turn. Do you buy that, or do you think that's kind of like a mute talking point?
There's an aspect of it for sure, but I think it was more that like last year they had to rely on him because Braden was a freshman, even though he was good, and like a lot of their guys, they didn't have Lance Jones, Fletcher Lawyer was younger, like they have grown, and Braden Smith is not. He plays like he's been there for 8 years. He's awesome. I agree. He's a baller. So I think they had no choice. They play much better through Edie now, in the post, out of the post, like kick out, move, and like be a little more mobile and active and stuff. And that's kind of picked up their pace a little bit and helped them. I still don't trust that they have to play through him to win because foul trouble, the refs aren't going, the calls aren't going their way. Like they're going to be screwed. And it's hard to get that right for whatever it is, 5-6 games. So,
and if he starts missing bunnies, which it could happen, right? Like,
yeah,
I think he's had maybe 1 or 2 games where you're like, man, he's missed a few layups. Like they're in some trouble, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, at that point, it's almost like, there's a little shot that they're going to have.
Yeah, and they're going to play against like if they play against even TCU has some size, but Utah State has some like legit forwards who will bang bodies with him down low. Great Osborne will give him some work 100%.
Yeah.
So
he's a great talent, man. Watching him at Montana State, I knew he was good, but man, he's really taken it to the next level. Jeez.
Yeah, for sure.
We got about 9 minutes here. Chad, if you guys have any questions, you can let us know. Put them in the chat. We'll try to get to them. Have you placed any bets yet? I know you're not the biggest bettor in the world, but anything like line wise that kind of caught your attention where you're like, can't believe that one.
I gotta be honest, I haven't looked at many betting lines because I'm a gambler. I know my ropes and stuff like that. I haven't looked at many lines other than like I know New Mexico's favored and it didn't scare me at all. I was like, I really don't care. There are a couple of teams like that, like 10-7s and 8-9s. 8-9 is not an upset at all. It doesn't really matter. But I think the McNeese State line was interesting. I think it was like 5.5 to Gonzaga, and that's it. And I was like, oh God, like this is really happening. Oh.
Yeah, that one's interesting. And then also Nevada's the favorite against Dayton, which is funny as a 10-7, which it's happened a few times, but man, I'm almost like, I try not to buy into the conspiracy and say like, well, because everyone's on that they're going to lose. But how many times has this happened in March where everyone's on Nevada? And look, I don't know if you saw my post, but I said, Nevada was coming off the flu. I confirmed that with a few reporters. They were sick against CSU. Like they had some guys who like borderline were not going to play. So they're going to be healthy. It's a 7-hour drive from Reno. They play at altitude. Salt Lake City's like everything is like, this is a great spot for Nevada. And then what Holmes is going to drop 35,
Yeah,
40
obviously,
points.
right. And Kobe Elvis is gonna hit 9-3. Like that's exactly what happened. This is what happened with Charleston last year. Everyone was like,
Yeah,
"It's Charleston, it's Charleston," and I was like, "No, like San Diego State is not a good matchup for them." And like these things happen all the time. And I think Charleston, I don't think they were favored. It might have been close to, if not there,
it
at
was
some
close to
point.
a pick 'em. Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right, let's run through a few of these. Thoughts on Illinois BYU. Neither have won 2 games in 10 years. I mean, sometimes it's just matchups and where you're seated at. Um, BYU is kind of like a sneaky team. They're, Illinois is not going to catch anyone because they just won the Big Ten here. But
yeah.
do you think BYU can actually make a run?
I think they could because I don't like I said, I don't love that region as much as everybody else does. I don't love BYU. They got the easiest 11 seed game, even though Duquesne's not terrible and like they could easily lose that game. I think Illinois would torch them inside. They would make their life a living hell in the paint, and I think that would be a problem for BYU if they end up playing. So if Morehead State beats Illinois, then maybe.
Yeah, there you go. Let's see here. Who can knock off Purdue? I
Yeah,
think we touched on that a little bit.
yeah,
If we look
definitely
at
Utah State.
Yeah, Utah State. I don't think I think TCU is going to have a tough time with Utah State, but
Yeah, they might.
again, Mountain West don't let us down.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think Gonzaga matches up really, really well with Purdue also. Like player for player personnel. They have multiple forwards they can throw it at Zach Edey for a while and bang bodies and stuff. And they've shown that they will do that. Graham Ike is like legit dog. Like he's a grown man. He's like 23. He's physical. He'll do it.
yeah, FAU Northwestern. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's just FAU maybe shouldn't be an 8 here. But they do have that experience. One thing I was thinking about, Ryan, is maybe a team like FAU, like getting to how deep they did last year in the Final Four,
Mhm.
maybe like turning around in the season, it was harder to get up for games. I know they had like 2 bad losses. I don't want to like make these excuses for them, but there could be something to that because we know they have the talent. It's just how well can they actually play in the tournament.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Northwestern's favored and everyone's going to pick Northwestern because they don't like FAU. I don't think it matters because UConn will probably torch either one of them.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's see here. Purdue. We talked a little bit about that. McNeese
Yeah.
State. That's gonna be a fun one. It's gonna be close either way. We know Gonzaga loves to play these close games in the tournament, so that one's. We might as well just turn that one on with 5 minutes left. It'll be tied
Yeah, I
up.
know. I'll have to do more digging on the numbers there and film and stuff.
Here's a good question. First four. You
Oh
know what?
God.
Some sharper guys really like Montana State that I've talked to. It's the classic like MEAC SWAC, like fade those teams.
Yeah, they're not good.
But Montana State, man, I don't know. I watch a lot of Big Sky. I'm shocked they won that conference.
So
I,
was I.
I was even talking to don't want to say his name, but one of the coaches. Maybe you guys can figure it out. But he was like there were like 3-4 teams that we thought had a chance. Northern Colorado, maybe Eastern Washington, Weber State, Montana. Nope. So
Weber State, I know. Yeah, it's tough.
yeah. Let's see here. Marquette. I think they could do it. I mean, they're in the Big East. They've proven themselves. Kolek is a beast, but I don't know. It's hard to get a guy back into speed during the tournament, right? Like,
yeah, if anyone can do it though,
know.
it'd be him. To be fair, but we talked about it before. I don't like their path at all.
Yeah. Can Mexico? Yes. I hope they do. That would be great.
Well, let's be honest, we all love them. Like they're probably gonna just end up losing to Clemson in like a dogfight buzzer beater or some stupid. Actually, no, they're gonna win that game. I lied.
Yeah, they're gonna win that one. But then who knows after that?
Baylor's very, very good. Like
they are.
I think they're underrated actually.
I think they have like a few guys who will play in the NBA, right?
Yeah, Eve will be a first round pick this year. Jacoby Walter will be a lottery pick. They got guys.
Yeah. Auburn, yes. I think it'll be a dogfight. Same thing here, Auburn.
Yeah, Auburn's a great matchup for them. Everyone knows that, and it's not like people will pick Auburn. I think I have them right now going to the Elite Eight or something like that. But it's a great matchup. If you want a team that's not in the Big East to beat UConn, like that is the exact team. They have guards. They'll run the floor. They have bigs to compete. They have a lot of size. They're physical. They cause a lot of turnovers. Like Janai Broome is gonna. I keep talking about begging bodies with bigs down low. Like Janai Broome versus Klingon would be awesome. And I think Janai Broome, he's more experienced. He's more physical. He's got better touch. I think he's a better college player. So
Yeah, I would love to see that matchup. The 15-2 South Dakota State, Western
Oof.
Kentucky. I think I but you know what? Like, as much as I like Iowa State, like, they can't be a slouch in this game against,
Yeah.
South Dakota
Jackrabbits are
State.
nice. Jackrabbits are
Yeah.
good. They got like just two players, like Zeke Mayo and William Kyle. They were like Summit Player and Defensive Player of the Year. They're very, very good. Like, you just got to stop those two and win through them. I think Western Kentucky is the one to watch. They play like
Mhm.
wild open game and stuff like that like no one's gonna be ready for. It's kind of like it's not like as good as Sanford, but it's kind of like Sanford's buckyball, but they just kind of just open it up. So
And it sounds like Kolek will play, but in a weird way, like, sometimes that can be a detriment. Like,
yeah,
I know it
force them
sounds
to.
crazy, but you gotta get him back up to speed. New Mexico, Nevada.
Oh.
God,
Ooh,
that'd be a fun
I
game, man.
think I think New Mexico kicked the absolute world out of them the both times they played them, like destroyed them the two times they played, if I'm not mistaken. Because
Yeah,
Nevada has not done well against. Let me make sure. It might be the other way around.
I kind of
Let me make sure.
forget.
I know I'm like drawing blanks now.
My memory sometimes is so bad because those teams always play late at night and they're always close games,
Yeah,
and so
no,
it's always like
they kicked the absolute world out of them. They beat them. They won by 1 the second time. They beat them by 34 the first time. That's what it was.
so New Mexico State or sorry, New Mexico beat them by 34.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
Then the second time was by 1, and Nevada was able to keep up a little bit.
yeah, yes, Gonzaga. I personally think Gonzaga can make a run.
I know this McNeese State thing is killing me. I don't want to talk about them anymore. I'm actually like last night I went to sleep and woke up thinking about which is so stupid because like
No, it happens, man.
I have a life to live, but not this week. This is my life this week. So
Yeah. Morehead State, we haven't really talked a lot about them. I haven't watched them as much as I'd be proud to admit, but
I haven't watched
anything
a lot
there?
of OVC either. I watched them a little bit. I don't think they match up well with Saz, and they play a drop coverage and on pick and roll, which is going to be good because they'll be able to defend Shannon and not let him get into the lane as much and score at will at the rim. Um, so that could help, but he can hit middies no problem. Which then they're going to have their step out. So I don't know.
A few more here. Wisconsin, James Madison. I like Madison as a live dog.
Yeah, I like JMU.
I'll probably pick them in my bracket for
They
fun.
play opposite. Like Wisconsin can shoot. They can't shoot. They let a lot of threes, and James Madison shoots a lot, and they don't let a lot of threes. Like I like JMU a lot.
Okay, a few more here. This is actually a good one because we haven't talked too much about this. I
Yeah.
actually like Oregon quite a bit. I think Dante is a difference maker. He's healthy. South Carolina, good defensive team. Like, this could be a lower scoring game, no doubt, but I kind
Mhm.
of like Oregon in that matchup. Maybe that's the
No,
Pac-12 bias in me, but
no, I'm completely with you. Like you said, and Folly Dante, he's been playing not just healthy. Like he's been one of the better players in the tournament. Like he's been unbelievable. Jackson Shellstad is one of my favorite freshmen in the country. They got some guys there. They have so many injuries this season. Also, I put this out earlier on Twitter. Dana Altman's been in the tournament 7 times with Oregon. They have won at least one game every single time, and the last 4 times he's been to the Sweet 16. So,
man, that's a really good stat. For
and
some
as like
reason, I kind of forgot about that.
one of them was like they were the last 4 Sweet 16 runs. They were a 7 seed, a 12 seed, and a 3 seed, and then a 1 seed in 2016. But 7 and 12, they run to the Sweet 16, no doubt. So
Wow. And last one here.
right
Yes.
there, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we like Creighton.
Do you have
Everyone
them?
likes Creighton.
Do you have them going to your Final Four?
I think everyone does. I have them there right now. I might change it. I think Oregon's dangerous. I think that's someone to watch there. No one's gonna pick Oregon. I'm terrified of Oregon.
I am too.
Terrified.
I think they'll get past Akron, even though it's not the best location spot for Creighton. But
Yeah.
yeah, they can get
I'm
past that
terrified.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Tennessee.
really yeah.
And you know what? We haven't talked a lot about Tennessee either. But Rick Barnes in the tournament hasn't had the most success. But Dalton
We don't need
Connect,
to talk
baby.
about him. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. He hasn't had it. I think Texas too could be a little dangerous because if
TSU,
they get
man.
UVA, they're gonna lose that game though. That's the problem.
Oh yeah, that would be a really interesting matchup. I
Yeah,
really
even
hope Colorado
yeah.
State wins, but
Yeah, man, me too. If Texas gets out of that first game, I like them against Tennessee.
oh, I guess there was one that I did want to discuss for the first four. Did we come with a consensus like who
Oh,
the like for a survivor, like who would your best first four
um,
game be for a
we
winner?
didn't, but oh man, you can't. I wouldn't pick against Virginia just because I know that like, oh yeah, Virginia's the worst team in the tournament, and then they're gonna win a game, obviously.
Colorado?
Damn. Yeah, I would go Colorado. I think they're just better.
Yeah. Cool. I appreciate you joining us, man. Do you have anything else going on this week that we can help support you? You're just gonna be posting on X and talking about everything.
Yeah, I'll just be all over some shows and streams and social media stuff, just doing everything I can, not sleeping. So
I know this is that time of year, man. Like John says, we sleep in
John is
May.
yeah.
John's so funny. I was watching him last night. He called like one bracket region like the bracket of drama because of like Caleb Love potentially
Oh my
matching
god.
up. It's just he's a funny dude. But guys, make
Yeah,
sure to follow Ryan. This is his X handle here in the chat. Give him a follow. Once again, man, I appreciate it. Best of luck with your bracket. And yeah, we'll talk to you soon, man.
for sure. Appreciate it, man. I'll talk to you.
Okay. See you guys.
See ya.